Danny and Ronnie and Liz. Let's look in James chapter 4, starting with verse 13. I want to talk with you tonight as James speaks to us, as the Lord speaks to us through James writing about the presumption of tomorrow. I'm going to share with you that unless the Lord, I don't know, that's the point of tonight's message, is that none of us have any idea how much more time we will have. Maybe a long time, maybe not much, who knows. But unless the Lord works a mighty work in my life soon, I'll probably, at the end of my life, I will have, I believe, one of my greatest regrets. One of my greatest regrets will be what I've shared with you tonight. I want to share with you something that I believe is a weakness that I have and a difficulty that I need the Lord's help on, but I don't often seek His help or assistance. I don't often recognize it as a failure, as a fault. And I think it's one that many people face, and at the end of life, it becomes very visible to them. It becomes a wound or a sore. You'll see it here in a minute. I'll share it with you. Let's look at verse 13. James chapter 4, starting with verse 13. He says, "Go to now, you that say, today or tomorrow we will go into such a city and continue there a year, and buy and sell and get gain." And, he's talking about someone who says what they're going to do in the future, what they're going to do tomorrow, what their plans are. But he says, "Whereas you know not what shall be on the morrow. For what is your life? It's even a vapor that appears for a little time, and then it vanishes away. For that you ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live, and do this or that. But now you rejoice in your boastings. All such rejoicing is evil. Therefore to him that knoweth to do good, and doth it not, to him it is sin." As I said, there's not an apparent fluid line all through James where just one thing just leads right into another. He has several things. I think he has a list, and he wants to talk with them about several things. In chapter 5, starting with verse 1 again, evidently he really, I think we talked about the mixture of people that's in the church that he's addressing. There are rich people and poor people. There are all different kinds of people. But he climbs in on the rich people. Woe unto you rich people. He starts with James chapter 5, verse 1. And so he kind of showers down. And it's not because, I don't think, it's because he has a prejudice against rich people. Sometimes I see, you'll find that when the Bible, and even Jesus himself, when he speaks with severe words or with harsh words against the wealthy, it's because he knows that they've been granted this wealth for a reason and a purpose. There are great things that they're supposed to be accomplishing with their wealth. There are things they're supposed to be getting done. They have material things because they have with them the ability to help people, to assist, to make a difference in things. The purpose and the reason that God blessed them, or that he might ever bless you and I with anything of material value, is so that we, not so we can have something, not just to make us happy, but he wants us to share and to give and to be generous. He says that to think like this, we rejoice in tomorrow. He says we rejoice in our boastings. He calls it boastings. This is what we're going to do. This is what I'm going to do tomorrow. He says it's evil. Now, Often when we see the word evil in the Bible, we think it's talking about sinfulness. It's talking about wickedness or lawlessness. But more often than not, when the Bible uses the word evil, it just means calamity, catastrophe. It means something unpleasant. It doesn't necessarily have to do with sinfulness. It has to do a great deal more with it's kind of what you reap after you have sown, and it's just this is what we got. This resulted, and he says evil are the kinds of things that when we boast like this, he says that the kind of things that happen are the things that are not helpful, they're not useful, they're often disastrous. How many of us do not say, well, I'm going to do this tomorrow, I'm going to do that today or tomorrow. I'm going to go there, I'm going to live there about a year. We have some plans. I meant actually to draw attention again. I often have and will do. I believe that these two panes of stained glass that the church leaders many years ago chose to place here are very important. Perhaps the most significant scenes in all of Christendom. And for our church and our church leaders and our forefathers to have chosen these, you see, when you look at this picture right here, I want you to think of not my will, but thine be done. That's how that ultimately turned out. Jesus went into the Garden of Gethsemane. I'm very happy, very pleased. I'm very grateful that on a couple of occasions the Lord has given me the opportunity to stand on the top of the Mount of Olives in the Garden of Gethsemane. I don't think any human being fully comprehends what went through Jesus' heart and mind that night, that he knew what was going to take place and what part he was going to play. Let me tell you this, probably said this before too. It's my conviction, my belief, that if Jesus had decided not to go to the cross, you see, Jesus wasn't praying just solely and completely to be delivered from the cross. He was really saying, if there is any other way, is there any other path, any other plan, is there a choice? Is there an option? That's really what he was praying. I believe that anything Jesus asked for from his Father, he already had implied. He said, all I got to do is call for the angels. Remember he said that? The famous sermon, he could have called 10,000 angels. That's the economy version. In the Bible, Jesus said he could have called 12 legions of angels. I could call 12 legions of angels. You look over in the Old Testament, it says that God wanted to completely decimate the Amalekite army. Send down one angel. Send down one angel. 12 legions of angels. Could call them. They'd come. But Jesus wasn't putting that before God. This is what I'm asking you for. He's saying, if there's any way, for Jesus to take on the form of a servant, as Paul describes it in Philippians chapter 2, to take upon himself the form of human flesh. Dr. Roy Beeman described it in class once as Jesus had to give up and had to lay aside many of his divine prerogatives. It's a very theological way of saying he had to take a part of who he was and what he could do, and he had to set it aside temporarily. There was a time that Jesus took Peter, James, and John upon a mountain, probably on Mount Hebron, and Mount Hermon. And there he gave them a glimpse of what he looked like without his physical disguise. He was so bright and shining that it caused them to actually pass out, to lose consciousness, they just couldn't stand it. It blocked them out. It overwhelmed them. we call that the Mount of Transfiguration. Jesus, what his Bible says, he was transfigured before them. To transfigure means to change the figure, to change the form, change the shape. So he wasn't, they got to see a little bit of what he was really like. And so there was a great deal. And so here in the Garden of Gethsemane, he had intentionally decreased himself, truly become human in so many ways, in so many regards. And so he's not speaking out of, it is physical weakness, but only because he was in a physical body. Not sinfulness, not doubt and fear, not a lack of faith or a lack of willingness and desire to be obedient to God. If there's any other way. But what comes out of this, and when you look, every time you look at this, you ought to think, I want my life to be like, not what I want, what you want. Not what I want, what you want. When you kneel to pray, I'm not going to pray for what I want. I'm going to pray for what God wants. God answers, when you pray, this is 1 John chapter 5. This kind of sounds like I'll read it and say, well, yeah. In 1 John chapter 5, John says, if you'll ask God for what he wants you to have, he'll give it to you. You ask God for what he wants. And that's why I think so often when I pray, God doesn't answer my prayers or give me what I've asked for, because I'm not following that model, that recipe, those guidelines. I'm asking for what I want. Not what I want, but what you want. As I travel through my days, I take every step. I'm always sounding out myself. What do I want? What do I want to do? What do I want for lunch? What am I going to wear today? Well, that's not as quite a big struggle for me as it might be for you ladies. What shoes am I going to wear? Well, I've got 2 pair. It's not all, I've got a 50-50 chance. I'm good. And we have been given free will. We've been given the ability to choose. And yet, that is also a gift from God that we have to use wisely. And we walk through life thinking, I have so many choices. I have so many things I can do. This life can, even in the simplest day on a Monday morning that starts tomorrow morning, even though I have to go to the same place where I work, or I will see the same people, I have the same basic routine, I perform the same job, and yet anything can happen. Anything, because of my choices and my decisions. And then other people around me make choices and decisions that might just completely come in and overrule everything that I do. That's really when we get derailed in it, when you got your day planned, and then someone else comes in. One of our workers at HTPG has a sign in his cubicle that says, it's a sign up there above his desk that says, yeah, let me stop everything I'm doing and help you with your problem. Yeah, let me just do that.
We need that. We need that sign.
Do you?
We both do.
So yeah, let me just drop everything I'm doing and quit what I'm doing, and let me just help you with what you're doing.
That's it.
Wouldn't that be good? Because there are no limit to people who will come to you and ask you to help them. I ask people to help me too. I intrude, I barge in, I pop in. I call people and say, I need some help. I kind of see James here. I don't know if they had tea kettles back then. Where did he see steam or vapor? Cooking, I guess, watching his mom cook.
Place or maybe a hot shower. You see steam rising in the shower.
Yeah, so that's something. I think it's very limited for James, wasn't it? You know, like I said, if we start thinking about things where we might see it, And then where he might have seen it and say, but he knew some vapor, some steam, so you kind of saw it. And he was very contemplative. Whoa. And God had somehow, and when he was watching that, and that's very important. You ever get a life lesson from watching a food cook or a teapot boil? God says, that's what life is like, man. It's just there and then it's gone. It's just there. I remember when I was a little boy, I stayed with the Richies. They kept me for a while. And their daughter Charlotte had to do a science experiment. And she had to take one of these Quaker oatmeal boxes and cut it in a certain way so that it kind of looked like a cylinder on a spindle. And she had to cut it so that it kind of had wings, kind of had flaps. And then she would put a tea kettle in front of it and put it on the eye and fill it with water, heat it up, and let that steam point to one side of that tube she made out of a Quaker oat box. And that thing would spin around. Just spin around. Okay? And so she did that as an experiment. I had to jot down everything that happened. I thought, man, this is school. I can hardly wait. Found out it wasn't all experiments and fun. James got, and you know, Jesus was always doing that, wasn't he? He said, the kingdom of God is just like this fig tree. The kingdom of God is like these two brothers over here. The kingdom of God is like this. And there's just time after time after time after Jesus said, look around. We're just, man, life is like a school. How often is God speaking to us and saying things? And he's saying, you know, this is what life is like. It's like steam. It's like vapor. And I think sometimes God is speaking and we're not hearing. We're not listening. I think I have this horrible thought. What do you think of when you think of Billy Graham living to be 99 years of age? I know a lot of people say, well, he lived a long life. What a wonderful life. And I'm thinking, God, what did Billy do that you made him live 99 years? Why were you punishing Billy Graham? It doesn't to live 99, if I ever wake up one day and someone says, yeah, you're 99 years old, I'm going to say, well, God evidently hates me. Now, I know you think about that. You think about, well, living a long time. Have you ever sat with a 99-year-old person or a 100-year-old person or an 85-year-old? Have you ever spent time with someone who's old? I never sit around with my mom and said, well, this is what I want someday. I want to be like this. I want to be like this. This is not what God intended for old age. When we see early in the Old Testament, the people who lived many years, it just kept on saying about Moses. You know, Moses was, the day he died, man, he could do just as, well, this is the Revised Version. It said he could do as many push-ups on the day he died as he could when he was 30. And God, you know, like called him. The guy who started on his journey when he was 40, and then when he came to the Promised Land, he was like 80. And it just kept saying, you know, his eye was still sharp, his mind was clear, and but, you know, that's, and I meet elderly, I do meet some older people, and they have their faculties about them, and they still can drive and do various things, but they're very, very few. That kind of person, you just make my daddy so mad. Brother Leon Dawson, Daddy hated to see him come because Leon was about 10 or 15 years older than Daddy, and he would say, well, I just go, I eat whatever I want to. I just jump up and down. I'm going out to Arizona in a little while, and Daddy would just, you know, Daddy was like 15 years younger than him and was plagued with every known disease, every disease known to man, and couldn't hardly do anything. I remember back around in the late 1990s that Dad's doctor told him that if he quit smoking, he'd add 10 years to his life. If I could go back in time, I would light Daddy back up. I'd say, here, have a cigarette or two. Why, son? Don't you want me to live? I said, no, Dad. You don't want to know anything at all about those next 10 years. Smoke. Do you know that, have you ever heard that during the filming of The Wizard of Oz, that in order to keep weight and swelling down, they had to wrap Dorothy up. They had to, Judy Garland, they had to wrap her up. She really was not a little girl. You know that, don't you? She wasn't a little girl.
Teenager.
Yeah. And she blossomed. They had to wrap her all up and bind her and tape her and everything so she kind of could give the semblance of being a little girl. In The Wizard of Oz, it's a little girl. It's like 8 or 9, 10 years old, not an 18-year-old girl. Just, you know, if you look at some of the drawings in Frank Baum's books, Dorothy Gale was a little girl. Well, they kept her on a certain diet to keep her from swelling up and further developing, and they made her smoke 90 cigarettes a day. Made her smoke 90 cigarettes a day. That's why, you know, if you ever see any in Judy Garland's daily life, you hardly ever saw her without a cigarette on her lips, in her fingers, on stage or in an interview or something like that. Man, she got to where she needed it. Just doing things, or they thought that had some effect. It kind of stunned her growth. In other words, it kind of keep her from developing. I think I kind of have a horrible image of waking up one day and someone says, well, you're 100 years old. And I hope that I want to sit there and say, I have wished my life away. When it was Monday, I was thinking about what I was going to do Tuesday. And when it was Monday, I was wishing it was Friday. And when I was in Scottsboro, I was wishing I was in Morgan County. And when I was here at the church, I was thinking about the journey later on. And always, I'll tell you this. Last weekend, last week, I looked forward. Terry had told me that my granddaughters were going to spend the night with us Saturday night. I could hardly wait. And guess what happened when they got there? I kept asking Terry, when are they going home? When are they going home? That's awful, Ronnie. You don't believe that. You're going to be a granddaddy one day. And you're going to look over at Karen and say, when are they going home? When are they going? You know what the difference is? Terry, it's wonderful memories because I'm back in the bedroom and I can hear Terry hollering at the grandkids, and it just reminds me of the old days when Jonathan and Carice were there and she was hollering at our kids. You know what the difference is?
You don't believe it.
Now, the granddaughters holler back at her. Now, my kids used to just nod and cow and kind of, Terry was saying, get your homework and make up your bed, pick up all these toys. And Addison is saying, why? And Avery's saying, no, I want to do this. And, she's hollering at them and they're saying, hey, no, that won't fly. I want to climb up here on top of this. And I can just hear the frustration in Terry's voice. She's used to our kids just, the only way to make mom be quiet is we got to do what she says. And Avery and Addison, it never occurs to them to do what Mimi says because they never do what their mama says or their daddy. It's good that they're good kids and they're sweet kids. They'd be setting the house on fire. I spend so much time when it's just quiet. I mean, it's just quiet. I live in a little apartment. And then, and so much of the time I don't even turn the television on. I can't even hear the refrigerator running. And I really do look forward to the girls being there, but it is like, it's like. Even when I'm back there in the bedroom, they keep coming bringing it back to me. I say, hey, yeah, I like it. Go show that to me. Go show that to me. And Terry comes back and says, why did you let them get all of my jewelry out of my jewelry case? And why don't you let them tear all the clothes off out of the closet. And why have they been opening all these drawers? Because when they're in there and they're pulling stuff out and it's flying through the air, I don't say a word.
Exactly right.
And Terry will come back to the back room and she'll say, "Ah! Why'd you let them do all this?" I say, "I was just watching. I didn't even want to get in the way." And that's why they like to come back there, because when they go up to where she's at and they start dragging stuff out, she says, "Don't drag everything out." They come back to where I'm at. There's less to drag out. They can just drag out whatever they want to. Let me say this. I don't live much of my life here and now. Enjoy this moment. Right here, right now with you. To cherish this, to enjoy it, to have a good time wherever I'm at. I think that there are so many occasions that I've just run by things. I've skirted past it. I was on my way to something next. I was on my way to something, and that's, you can waste a whole life doing that, I believe. There's no telling how much I have wasted. I look at my kids now and I'm thinking, man, they're grown, they're gone. Did I watch them learn to walk, and do I remember what they first said when they began to talk? I believe that's probably one of the reasons that I have such an affectation toward recording things and taking pictures and taking videos, but it's really just a part of the problem, because you know what I'm thinking? For our vacation last year, we went to Disney World. And I kept thinking, I can't wait till I get home and look at these videos and see what we did. Because I have no idea now. I can't. And I have looked back, and I looked at the pictures, and I said, boy, I didn't really realize it at the time, but we had a lot of fun.
Avery can do it. Avery.
Terry does have this jewelry. I don't know, jewelry. It's one of these, it stands up, it's a tower, and it's got little wings that fly out, and drawers that pull out. And Avery looked in that bottom drawer, and she reached in there and she picked out, there were some bracelets in there. They're made out of rubber. And they're very kind of ugly looking. They're not jewelry. But she held those up. She said, "Pops, this is how we got in at Disney World." That when we wore those bracelets, they're key to us. And all we had to do was hold it in front of a reader, and it would say exactly who we were. Had a picture of us would pop up. We had to test that a few times. But she's 3 years old, and she knows that bracelet. She does have a memory. And I do enjoy looking at the pictures. And I was really just hoping that I would live until the next day. It's like that story. A man came home from a Saturday afternoon playing golf. Been playing golf. His wife said, "Honey, how'd your golf go today? Did you meet the guy?" I said, "Yeah." Said, "Right after we got started, though, you know Jim, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." "Jim died." She said, "You mean Jim was playing golf with you and he died?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "That's awful. That's terrible." He said, "Yes, it was. We'd hit the ball and drag Jim, and then hit the ball again, drag Jim."
Oh my goodness.
You know, it made golf terrible. Just drag. And so that's what they did with, "Come on, Pops." So we'd get an ice cone, cream cone, and then we'd drag Pops, and then we'd go see a show, and then we'd drag Pops, and then they were very patient and kind. And both of the kids had a little cart to ride in, and they didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I kept looking at that thing like, I wonder if I could fit into that. And I saw old people in far better shape than me getting their rear end pushed around all over Disney World. And there I was going, and when you get that tired, if you like rest for 10 minutes, that means you can walk for 2 minutes. You rest for 15 and you can walk for 2 more minutes. You know, the math is like, okay, we're rested for 15 minutes. Now we can walk for 15 minutes. Rest for 15 minutes, walk for 15. Yeah, that math don't work at all. I had a good time. I'll never forget that. I actually made extra effort to watch and to listen, to see, to taste, and to soak up as much as I could. I had a feeling, I may be wrong, I don't think our whole family, my son and daughter, Brian's mom and dad were there with us, Terry and I, and the kids, grandkids, that we were all on a vacation. Who would ever have thought? Oh, we hadn't been on a vacation with both of our kids in years and years. And he's talking about the presumption. He's saying, you're talking about tomorrow. And he says, nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. You might not live tomorrow. You might not, everything might be gone tomorrow. Well, sometimes I find myself gulping down food without even chewing it, drinking exotic drinks of different kinds, fruit punches, and I had my niece met me at the door at O'Charlie's Friday night and said, you want a pink lemonade? I said, you read my mind. That's exactly what I want. Pink lemonade. And just drink it down and the taste buds will say, hey, wait a minute, we didn't get to taste that, it's gone. It's very, how long ago was it when you were young and healthy? That's another thing. You know, the other plague of that is I find out as I get older, I'm living more and more and more in the past. Thinking about old friends from my childhood and things that I did, and places that I went, and things that I've done. How much of my life I'm kind of wishing things are the way they used to be in so many regards. Let me say this. I have not found this to be so. I don't think you can reclaim the past. I don't think you can recapture the past. I don't think things in my life will ever be as they used to be. Let me tell you something. The church that Danny and I were saved in, it was just in many regards an ordinary church, but it was, to me, an extraordinary church. And I guess we probably had, I appreciate Ronnie and Liz and Karen, but at our church, we probably had anywhere from 6 or 8 people who could play the piano or the organ and just play it like crazy. We're very good at it. We had so many different people who would sing, who would sing with a quartet or sing with a duet or sing in the choir, sing what we call a special, what we still call a special. And see, we had so many people who had so many different abilities and skills and that had so many different spiritual abilities. And I will tell you that when I became a pastor, it was what I wanted to do was for every church that I ever pastored to be exactly like that. I've pastored 7 churches and none of them have even been close. Some of them, I'm not saying that they've been less or bad or this was not as good as that. It's just been different. Every one of them are different. And I found that if I arbitrarily tried to make things the way I remembered them when I was a child, all I was doing was just trampling all over other people's dreams and memories and the things that had been blessings to them. That there was, regardless of how much we love people or how blessed we were or are, we can find the people that we are with being diminished all the time as we think about times that we think were happier times. Remember that there's a Loretta Lynn song called The Good Old Days When Times Were Bad? The song is about people talking about the good old days. No, those were the good old days. And Loretta Lynn says, those were terrible days. We didn't have enough money. We didn't have enough food to eat. We didn't have clothes to wear. We were cold when it was cold, and we were hot when it was hot. And he said, everybody talking about the good old days. He says, is your memory twisted somehow? Are you wrong? But then there are lovely, wonderful things that I think that hope every person has some memory or some group of memories that they cherish. But I see it, especially in the aged, that they live. They live in the past. They talk about the past and their childhood, their youth. I went in and sat a little while with Mother yesterday, and when I sat down, we began talking a little bit. She said, "Did you come and get me and take me somewhere last night?" And I said, "No, Mother, I sure didn't." She was pretty sure I did. She just couldn't remember where we went. I said, "No, it must have been a dream." So you're right here. She often calls Danny and says, "I'm in the floor," or "I'm in the living room, and I can't get back to my bed." She can't move. She doesn't go anywhere. And sometimes people mistreat her. They say, "Well, we're going to cut your hair." They get her all ready. Everybody in the whole family's over there, and they're going to cut it. And then all of a sudden, they just leave, and they don't even say goodbye or nothing. She thought that's what this bunch over here did Monday night. Had her all set up with her haircut, and everybody was there. Now listen, when she gets a haircut, everybody but me is there. It's a big, somebody that can't even hold their head up. And you got to figure out how to stand them up, prop them, or something like that, how to cut their hair when they can't even straighten their head. And Liz has bought some clippers, so I know that's going to be exciting. And I think my mother will look good with a mohawk. And I just, it'll be easier to take care of, and you just keep trimmed and things like that. So you just go for it, Liz. Just whatever. Bzzz, like.
It'll be one of those memories you share.
Yeah. Hello, Brandy. Like that buzz cut you got going there. Bless her heart. Bless her heart. That's what we all have to look forward to. Some of you more than closer than you think. That's what James is saying here. He says, no, don't do that. Proverbs 27:1 says, "Don't brag about tomorrow, because you don't know what a day is going to bring forth." That's what James is talking about. To pick up a roll at dinner and say, "Boy, look at that. That is good. Somebody made that." And that butter, she brought us some butter. Didn't even ask for the butter. There it is. And here's our plate. And our wonderful waitress. She never did bring us any pickles today, though. I don't know. But I tell you, when you go out to eat, and I love waitresses and people that wait on you and care for you. I appreciate it. My kids did that when they were. I thought that this is really important. Our kids waiting on tables. I said, I'll go pay to watch that. But it ought to just be a thrill to go out someplace to Cracker Barrel or to go to O'Brien's or something, or Old Charlie's or Old Kira's, to go to Geraldino's and eat. You ever been to Geraldino's? Now it's a good place to eat. Italian food. Those waitresses, well, I know when they come to the table and they got their hands behind their back. You know what they're about to do? They're going to take your order and they're not going to write anything down. And I just dare them. I say, all right, go ahead. I want a pink lemonade. No, I want tea. No, I want a Coke. Maybe just water with lemon in it. No, I don't want any lemon. You got that? She says, yep. And usually someone that comes and does that, they just amaze us. But that's not any fun, really. You know what's really fun? So did you have sweet tea? No, I had unsweet. But you had lemon in it. No, I didn't have any lemon. And who ordered the water? Nobody ordered water? Who got a Coke? Well, sorry, we don't have Coke. We have Pepsi. And then, whatever shows up, finally you just say, you know what? This will be fine. To look around. Now, my granddaughters, when we go out to eat, they study everybody that sits around us. They look around. They're watching people. I don't want to look around and see nobody. I want to see what they're putting in their mouth or what they're doing. Or I don't want to hear what they're talking about. I really don't. Well, and I mentioned to you this to you recently, I really don't believe, there's not any past, it's gone. The future doesn't exist yet. It's not out there waiting for us. That sounds like an episode of The Twilight Zone. You ever see that episode where this guy, I just know that he bumped into the future, and he got there, and there were guys in paint outfits, and they were ladders and paper, and they were making the future. They were putting it together. What are you doing here? You ain't supposed to be here for another half second. We're just getting the future ready. And he had to figure out how to kind of get back into who he was, and then when he stepped into it, it was all ready, and everything was painted, the sky and the stars. That the God kind of had a whole group of construction crew of angels, and they were kind of making the future. Well, that's not it. You ever played video games? Play something like The Legend of Zelda. And, you're guiding your little icon there, your little avatar represents you, and you got your magical sword and everything. You step out, and there are all the uglies that are coming to get you, and the treasure's hidden out there somewhere. You might be in a cemetery or a forest, and you see rocks and trees, and you might have some people who are helping you. And as you kind of step out and you move the joystick forward, this whole world you're in it, and you're pretending you're playing. But do you know that what you're seeing on the screen, it doesn't even exist until you step into it. It is created instantaneously. It's not like that video game has screen after screen after screen and it's stored. No, it assembles it as you put your foot forward. It appears, it is constructed, it is assembled. And that's almost very much like the way our life is like. If you could jump into H.G. Wells' time machine and travel a year into the future, we'd find it would just be nothing but an empty, dark, black hole of nothingness. There's not anything there. James says we don't have tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't exist. And he says, and that's something that I try to, you can tell I'm trying to let the Lord teach me, because when I drop Randy off tonight, I say, I'll see you Wednesday night if the Lord wills. That's what James said. So we ought to say, if the Lord wills, we'll do this or that. And the reason we need to have a not my will but thy will be done is, let me tell you this, and I'll close with this. Everything is going to end up just exactly the way God wants it. It's all going. God's will is going to be done. There's a verse, it's just kind of a piece of a verse over in Romans chapter 9, where Paul says, he's talking about, you're thinking about your will and God's will, and he asks this question, for who hath resisted his will? Who hath resisted his will? Who's overcome God? Who's outdone God? Who's gotten faster than God? Or who hath resisted his will? God's will is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. It's coming. Well, I really hope I'm not sitting one day in my old years and thinking, man, I've been in a rush to get life done, and I've run past things and people. I've wanted to accomplish and to achieve, and I've been running full tilt, and I've barely looked around at my surroundings. And I've looked at my calendar and what I'm going to do next. And I want to be on time, and I want to be there, and I want to be present. I want to be ready. I want to be prepared. I want to have my sermon ready to preach and my song ready to sing. I hope I'll do a better job next time at doing the magic trick for lamb service. And always thinking about, I've got to get this ready. I've got to get this done. And I'm really just kind of running past the present, the now, the here. And that may not seem to be a terrible fault, but I think it's awful. That this is almost like us being at a wonderful meal, and we're just gulping food down and hardly even chewing it without even tasting it or smelling it, sampling it. We just feel like we're maybe in the army or at school. They start, that's the way it starts at school. They bring you into the lunchroom. You think about school lunch. Just think about it for a minute. You probably don't remember. Maybe you do. Do you know how long you had to eat for lunch? You probably think, well, ours is during fourth period. You think of that way.
20 minutes.
20 minutes at the most, probably 15 minutes. 15 or 20 minutes. And 5 of those minutes, like you said, if it is 20, is getting there and coming back. Sit down and eat, and just, y'all need to eat. We got to get this food, eat, and get back to class. It's not lunch hour at all. Well, let me caution you and let the Lord caution us. Our life is just like a vapor. It appears for just a little time, and then it's gone. It's gone. Can't get it back. It's just so transient. The Dotsons are wondering if, there's going to come a time when they'll be the only people in their house. They're going to be empty nesters. The Reeves already are. They kept telling their boys to go get a job and move out, go home. And finally they did. Now they miss it. Our lives change. Go over to Randy's house, and he's got pictures of his family there, and I know he sees them every day. And they're with the Lord. Well, that's hard. That's hard. And look around you every moment and savor everything. It's easy to say. And maybe I don't practice what I preach, but I want to try to do. To begin to look and to study and to listen and open my eyes and listen with some of my ears. Touch things and hold things. And say, this is all I've got right now. I can't call back the past, and I don't know what's going to be in the future, or even if I should be alive tomorrow. I've met Christians that all they can talk about and sing about and dream about is being with Jesus in heaven. That's going to be wonderful. What if that's all you got? All you got. I remember I had a professor at seminary. He says, most Christians say, if we can just get through this awful, miserable, terrible life, somehow we'll be with Jesus one day. And he says, you know what? If they felt that way about life down here, he says, they're probably not even going to be happy in heaven. All right. Let me pray for you as we go. Lord, thank you for this day, for your goodness. Thank you for your word. Let it speak to us because it is wisdom and truth. Lord, maybe nothing at all that I said tonight was illuminating or inspiring about what you said, but what you said to James and through James is important. And it has a lot to do with how our lives will be lived now. To be here in the moment and not to be daydreaming about something in the past or in the future, but to be here in your blessings. We pray, Lord Jesus, in your name. Amen. God bless you, folks.